For this lesson, I wanted to just work with some very simple materials, working on this portrait inspired by the Maasai tribe in Kenya. This photograph is from Unsplash. If you go to our blog, you'll be able to download the photograph. And, I wanted to work in simple materials because I wanted to show you that whether you're working in your studio and practicing, or if you're on the go while you're traveling, you don't have to overcomplicate your materials. You could simply use a journal or a mixed media piece of paper and colored pencils. I'm going to be starting with just one color. You could do a full drawing, just monochromatic, meaning in one color, or you could switch over and add a few more colors, which I will be doing as well. So I'm going to be working in 3 colored pencil colors throughout this lesson. Many of you are probably familiar with the Maasai as well as Kenya. They have such a distinct attire, especially the intricate beading. And you see this, collared neck around the women, these beaded crowns around and headbands on their heads. But it's as much a part of the beauty as it is the culture and the tradition, as well as the status in the tribes. So as I'm working on this, I really want to pay attention to this beading detail and find ways in which I can really accentuate all this detailing. So right now I'm just doing a profile of this woman and, just trying to get my my perspective right, the angle of her face. So kind of drawing on the photograph and then taking that line and bringing it over onto my journal here. Again, by using just one color to start, it keeps things really simple. I'm using value, but with one color. So how I'm doing that is basically just using it really light to start, and then I'll start to darken this color in areas that need more value. So I want to kind of get her head in and her neck line in and her shoulders in before I get all that detailing. Obviously, all this bead work does cover up quite a bit of her frame and her body frame. But for me, I like to get the frame of everything in first, as opposed to add in all the detailing, of the clothing and of the beadwork until I wait until afterwards for that. Whether you're working on a straight-on view or a side view of a portrait or of a face, you really do want to kind of break it down in planes. So for me, the side view, when I first started out, I know that I always made the head a lot smaller than it actually was. And especially here you can really see it because she doesn't have much hair. But when people have hair, a lot of times we cut their head short and kind of make it flat. So keep that in mind when you're working on side views. Make it maybe a little bit more elongated than even in the photograph, just to kind of really accentuate so you don't get that kind of flatness to the back of the head. But with this photograph, it's really easy to see the shape and form, and even my drawing is already accentuated even more than here on the photograph. So I'm really working lightly at this point. And you could do this with a pencil as well, but the color pencil is kind of nice where you start to see kind of the colors a little bit easier, I think, than sometimes a pencil, and it kind of has a warmness to it, so just like the skin tone. But start really light, really sketchy, things that you could move around, you could erase if you wanted to, or you could just keep drawing over it and shifting things as you go. once you get the features where you want, then you can start bringing in more value. So I do this by a couple things here. I'm coming in a little bit more with a little bit more pressure and darkening the color. And then I'm also going over and over again with more line work. So you can see I'm just making a lot of small movements over an area that has a little bit more value. So the lighter areas, I'm not going to come in with as much sketchy feel, and the pressure of my pencil is going to be a lot finer. The other way you can do this is do some really close cross hatching. And then if you put it wider apart, you're going to have less color or less value. So those are some key things, especially when drawing portraits, that you can come in and start to slowly add more and more value. By sticking with one color, this helps you to really study the values in the face without getting overwhelmed by what color you're going to use, what style you want to bring out. This is a great way to start practicing a subject matter. So if I wanted to take this piece and move it into a painting, I've already kind of studied the values within my drawing. So moving into adding more color and into a painting, it's going to be a lot easier. So this is a great technique in order to warm up for a larger painting or a larger drawing piece where you add more color as well. On paper, the women of the Maasai tribe may seem like they take more of a traditional role, taking care of the land and the home and raising the children, but they do so much more. As you study, you know that they are the ones to gather the water. They're the ones to gather the wood for fire. They do beadwork. So at one point, the Maasai Mara survived primarily off of sales from cattle. And at this point, since the environment is shifting, there is a big shift in the income source. And some of the traditional beadwork and the beading, which is done by the woman, is now being a source of income for a lot of these tribes. So the women play such an integral role in the changes and shifts that are happening throughout the land. So knowing this piece of history, this part of the culture, I really wanted to emphasize this beadwork. It's a status symbol. Each color can represent different things in the tribe. It can represent if you're married, if you're not married. It really, really plays such a large role that I wanted to really accentuate this in the drawing. Now, the beadwork is so detailed. I'm not going to be able to do all those details. If you are very patient and you like to do a lot of detail, great, but I'm going to use some techniques here and mark making to kind of give the illusion of that I'm doing all of those details without doing every single bead. As I move along, I'm really trying to keep loose with that line work. I know I have a little bit more defined edge, especially around her profile, but you can see that I'm using my line work and going in different directions and kind of repeating over it. This helps you, especially if you put something in the wrong place, it helps you to keep shifting some of these features. And it also adds a little bit more expression to your drawing versus if you just outline the face, you're not going to get quite as much of that expression. So here I am. I'm going to start coming in with both dots and then kind of lines at different angles in order to create some of this beading right on her headband as well as in her necklace as well. And so this is going to take quite a bit of time, but it's detailed, but it's not near as detailed as if I were drawing every single bead. It's just using quick hash marks and dots to create all of this texture. So I'm going to stop it here. Instead of drawing every little detail of her hair on her head, I'm actually coming in and I'm doing different angles. So I'm kind of doing some cross-hatching one way and then cross-hatching in a different direction and multiple different directions to create the idea of her hair without, again, having to do all the detail. So play on it. Play with some of your own patterning to make it unique and to kind of allow you to, add that expression without having to come in and add every strand of hair. It's so hard to do, and to me, it adds just a little bit more personality when you come in with different kinds of hash marks and different kinds of mark making in your drawings. So maybe take an extra piece of paper, play with some mark making, see how maybe you could bring that into your piece. This kind of just came to me as I'm coming, how I was going to do her hair, being that it is short and then it's darker towards the edge and then a little bit lighter as you get closer to her face. I just wanted to go in different directions. I thought it was a great way to kind of add in the idea of her hair here. So she wasn't completely bald, but, giving it its own pattern and its own texture with just the cross-hatching. So a little bit more about the land. The Masai Mara, or the Mara as locals call it, is a large national game reserve in Narok, Kenya. And this was named in honor of the Maasai people, which are the ancestral inhabitants of the area. The land in the reserve is just occupied by numerous wildlife, anything you can think of when you think of Africa. So your wildebeest, your zebra or zebra, as they say locally, the lions, elephants, Cape buffalo, rhinos, you name it. So when you think of the terrain and the way that they're living, you think of all the hardships that they actually go through on a day-to-day basis, and how incredibly strong these women must be to go through some of these hardships or change, if there's drought, how far they actually have to go to get water. So I always find when you're working on portrait work, it is so important to relate to your subject matter. So I'm working from a photograph. I'm not working from someone in person. If it were someone in person, I'd be asking questions, asking stories, and really bringing some of that personality of the person into the piece. For this piece in particular, I'm relying on a photograph from afar. Since I don't have, a way to, interview someone, I am basically doing my own research, watching my own videos, doing my own reading on the culture, on the people, on the region to give me a better feel so some of that personality can come through in my portrait work. Portraiture is really about getting to know the subject matter and letting that personality come through. So as best you can, work in life or work from photographs of someone you have taken from and know their story. But if you don't know their story, start to dig deeper on your own and have some of those things come through. Maybe you read a story of someone on the internet and it might not be the person, but you can have some of those traits and personality come through in your drawing. Now, I debated at this point if I wanted to keep it monochromatic, but I am going to come in with a blue and a yellow as well. And just kind of bring in some of these detailing. You see a lot of the red, yellow, and blues in the beading and the beadwork, and then as well as some greens. So I'm going to just stick to a 3-color palette and bring some of those traditional colors within this piece. So coming a little bit closer so that you can really see some of this detailing as I go on. So I fast forwarded through a lot of that detailing because it's just time consuming. Even though I didn't do every bead, I really came in and did a lot of mark making in order to create some of those marks. You can come in with like a white pencil if you would like to, or white charcoal. It's not showing up very much on my page, but sometimes you can, or a white gel pen as well, to just come in with some highlights into your drawing. But continue to add your own marks, your own detailing, play with different colors, play with different pressure on through your pencil, but using just minimal colors and minimal supplies can really help you to connect to your subject matter, rather than focusing so much on what color to use and what layout you're going to do. This helps you to really practice and get to know your subject matter a little bit better. And again, a wonderful tool if you are traveling and on the go, to keep it really simple and a way that you could connect and ask people about their life and their stories as you are traveling. Thank you so much for joining me on this Artist Travel Days series. I hope you join me next time.